Oh, blessed be the 1970s, a decade that churned out some of the best and weirdest sci-fi movies of all time. Some of them may have faded into obscurity, but they deserve a second look. Why? Because whether they're mind-blowingly good or hilariously bad, the 1970s was a golden era for sci-fi. So grab your favorite pet rock, 10-pound ashtray, and decorative kitchen canister set, as we make a convoy to the top 5 forgotten 1970s sci-fi movies you need to see. Number 5, Starship Invasions, 1977. Rudy, a simpleton and farmer, is abducted by aliens. On the alien ship, Rudy sprouts an eggplant when Sagnac enters. Damn girl, you're hot. Even that overbite is sexy. And Rudy doesn't care, this is the best day of his life. Next, they abduct a nuclear family while on an afternoon drive to collect DNA and fluid samples, and they manage to stumble across the county's most hysterical female.
Oh boy, a real flying saucer! My God! We're the only car in this whole road! What are you doing? Why are you stopping this car? Don't do that, Billy! You'll get the mad of us!
The aliens leave them in their car as they make the drive of shame home. But shame is returned tenfold to the aliens when they learn this.
The examination of the man's sperm cells proves we are nothing but the descendants of transplanted earthlings. We must exterminate our own parent race.
Then they go ahead and do just that. Rudy and the abductee family do themselves in by the aliens' command. It's a solid plan, but did you consider the massive cleanup? You would have to dispose of millions of bodies littering the planet before you can even roll with the shag carpets. Christopher Lee, as Captain Ramses, telepathically briefs his company on the true nature of their mission.
Our planet's sun is in a very dangerous phase and may explode at any moment.
But if you guys were so advanced, why couldn't you realize your sun was going supernova until the last minute? Panspermic idiots. They duped the trusting intergalactic league of races in their oceanic pyramid. Ramses considers the offer of a lap dance.
Hello. Hi. Hi.
Watches some Earth TV, hey, Robert Vaughn's on, and then take over the base with their laser fingers. Now that they control the base and the ships and the valet parking, they're one step closer to conquering Earth. This movie is somewhat of an oddity. It presents as a bad parody, but is it? Starship Invasions certainly has the earmarks of an older UFO invasion film before Star Wars: A New Hope, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind evolved the genre. And it's true that Starship Invasions was rushed to completion to capitalize on Star Wars and Close Encounters' success, but this film has its merits. First off, they got Robert Vaughn and Christopher Lee to appear in it. That's pretty damn good. The overall artistic look is actually good, and even surprisingly good at times. For example, the ship hangar scene. The fact that about 70% of the film was told telepathically was a risky choice. The actors are emoting less, but somehow this works.
That is the ship you should visit now. You had your instructions.
I understand, Captain. That ship, it shall be done.
But if you're garbed in a crowned onesie, it's better to keep your mouth shut. Death is dealt prolifically with zero given, and this menacing tone is deeply ingrained in the celluloid. There's something about this movie that is tricky to articulate. But my best stab at Starship Invasions is that it's a derivative, unsettling, adult-orientated, captivating attempt at a matinee-type movie. Even though the space battles look like asteroids, it adds to the overall whatever in this paradoxical hour and a half. Hodgepodge comes to mind. That android in the League of Rainbow Races, the one who saves the day in the end, was inspired by extraterrestrials documented in accounts of contactees and abductees. So apparently there's a planet populated by characters from Buck Rogers? The pacing lags from time to time, but the weirdness will hold your attention. I recommend this one. And the greatest takeaway for me is the healthy crush I've developed on Sherry Ross. Number 4, Zardoz, 1974. I am speechless, totally flabbergasted and somewhat unsettled. I watched an hour and a half of Sean Connery sporting a loincloth, French braid and mutton chops, made worse by a bridal gown. Ignore the PSAs because you will need heavy narcotics to make it to the end of this movie. But you have to realize that's when films took big risks. The film opens with an Egyptian-looking disembodied British head. Zardoz, or Arthur Frayne, rolls up to his legion of brutal exterminators and non-manscapers in a floating head to deliver his Sermon on the Mount.
You have been raised up from brutality to kill the brutals who multiply. The gun is good. The penis is evil.
They're ordered to go forth and cleanse the world of the brutal breeders by vomiting an arsenal of weapons. Armed, the exterminators charge forth looking for dicks to shoot. Sean Connery, Zed, our leading lady, doesn't hesitate to get the party started. Then, Zed stows away on board the floating head and he shoots Arthur Frayne, aka Zardoz, I think. Not clear, really? And he's taken away to the land of immortals, or the vortex. And there's no vortexes there. A country manor littered with listless, bored, and corrupt immortals who have atrophied over their eternal lifetime, provided by the Tabernacle, an AI. Consuela wants Zed exterminated because, as an exterminator, he poses a threat to their order and can instigate a revolution. But the other immortals want him kept around just for this purpose, and to do house chores, and for... Nah, Zed doesn't get off that easy because he's too busy navigating this schismatic society. A segment of society, the apathetics, have slumped into catatonia, and moving forward, it's revealed that Zed is the product of long-term eugenics under Arthur Frayne's auspices. He's the key to ending the immortals' pointless existence. Thank God. Did you know that Zardoz was John Borman's backup? He petitioned to make The Lord of the Rings, but the technical capabilities back then made that an impossibility. Cancelled, Borman made this instead, and he had near carte blanche because of his success directing Deliverance. Zardor tanked and confused audiences who couldn't grasp the masturbatory philosophical musings, panned for its self-indulgence, and some say the product of a midlife crisis. Number 3, A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Is this the greatest sci-fi movie of all time? Some think so. If you disagree, you still have to acknowledge its influence on the realm of science fiction. Scribed by the prolific and tenacious Harlan Ellison's novella of the same title, follows Vic, a very young Don Johnson, and his telepathic mutt Blood, as they scavenge through the post-nuclear wasteland after World War IV. A terrifying thought worsened by the year this movie takes place. But what's more shocking comes at the end of this video. Blood is the more intelligent of the two and quizzes Vic on historical events.
Do the presidents. Kennedy.
Altered for dramatic effect, of course. Their partnership is basic and base. Vic provides the food he can steal in exchange for Blood tracking down women. A detail chastised by feminist groups in the 1970s, life in the wasteland is cheap, especially for young females who are constantly at risk of violent treatment, resulting in a grisly demise. Meanwhile, 3 individuals watch Vic from afar, seemingly plotting something for him.
That's our boy. Put out the cheese.
Later, Vic and Blood pay admission to watch some ancient stag films. Blood grumbles for popcorn and then he detects a woman in the audience. They track her down. Quilla June Holmes, underground in a derelict YMCA and threatened at gunpoint for sex, but Blood warns Vic that a gang of scavengers are coming. A gun battle erupts and they, along with Quilla, escape, but Blood receives some injuries. Safely hidden in a water tank, Vic and Quilla get it on, but she makes her escape to the underneath world from whence she came. Vic is determined to track her down. Blood warns him it's a trap, but Vic ventures down. However, he does promise to return for Blood, who desperately wants to make his way over the hill to a fabled paradise. Vic discovers a subterranean world reminiscent of a very weird and wholesome authoritarian 20th century Midwestern Americana. The Down Unders went white-faced to distinguish themselves from the Topsiders. Vic is apprehended by a large man, Michael, dressed like a farmer. Vic is bathed and clothed as a farmhand and escorted to a drumhead hearing in a church. En route, Vic lunges at some far too young girls and then has a brief telepathic communication with a terrier. And then Vic is given fantastic news that he's the new stud in the colony.
You mean you want me to knock up your broad?
But it's not the good time he expected. His baby goo is distracted by a pump in a bizarre mass wedding ceremony held in an operation room. Quilla rescues him and together they escape topside to find Blood. Reunited but worse for wear, Blood urges Vic to push on.
How about over the hill, Tiger?
I can't make it to where I am now, but you might be able to.
And Quilla tries to charm Vic to leave with her, leaving Blood behind, and sweetens the pot by admitting that she loves him. And now the ball's in Vic's court. What to do? In the final scene, Vic makes sure that Blood has eaten enough. Quilla is nowhere to be seen and shreds of her wedding gown are strewn about. And then Blood jokes with his final line.
She said she loved me.
Well, I'd say she certainly had marvelous judgment, Albert, if not particularly good taste. Particularly good.
And like I said, it's a dog-eat-dog post-apocalyptic world. The same macabre tones that inspired George Miller's opus Mad Max, and also the video games Fallout and Wasteland, were inspired by A Boy and His Dog. Number 2, Phase 4, 1974. So when's the last time you sat down to a good old ant invasion movie? Giant, marauding, radioactive ants. Days, months, years, probably decades? Well, it's about time you sat through Phase 4 because it is a completely different take on the 1950s subgenre. And you won't believe what Phase 5 is. It all begins with an unknown celestial event that triggers ants to evolve at alarming rates in the remote Arizona desert. The ants develop a hive consciousness, systematically devour their predators, and then they kick it up a notch by invading a small human settlement, raising the alarm with the scientific community and the government. Ernest D. Hubbs, the biologist who initially noticed the strange events, and James R. Lesko, a cryptologist, arrive at the infestation site. They examine the settlement ruins and then they're startled by 7 perfectly constructed columns built by the ants. And thus begins the battle of wits and brinksmanship between man and ant. The scientists are set up in a geodesic dome equipped with insecticide sprinklers and high-tech scientific equipment to figure out this mystery and hopefully bridge a channel of communication with the colony. You know, to find out what the f they want? As they run tests, monitor, and speculate that ants are engaging with the scientists, Hubbs decides to knock on their front door with a grenade gun. Leveling the columns wasn't advisable because the ants attack a local farm family. The daughter, Kendra, is the lone survivor and takes refuge with the scientists. But her presence makes escape on foot dicey because there are only 2 environmental suits available on site. The ants strategically disable communication, stranding them. James works on deciphering the ant language that is advancing by the day. Battles are inevitable, and the ants are winning, but they don't wipe the scientists out. Not like that mouse. Those are fast eaters. James and Ernest argue over opposing methods of dealing with the problem. The ants are poisonous and wounds Ernest's hand. And this better transform you into an Ant-Man, man. And James makes progress by establishing communication with the ants. And Kendra, apparently, sacrifices herself for the men by going outside. Ernest surmises killing the queen will end the infestation, so he fumbles to the hive, only to fall into an ant trap and be consumed alive. Alone, James says f it and commits to completing Hubbs' mission. And when James enters the hive, the script is literally flipped on its head. Kendra emerges from the sand. They embrace, and the ants partially reveal Phase 5 to them. It is to be a peaceful assimilation of humanity into ant society. But what will that look like? Because Kendra and James are on hold waiting for further instruction from the ants. And that's the end of the story. Strangely, Phase 4 reminds me of the Andromeda Strain from 1971, and it possesses a similar emotional impact. Certainly more ludicrous then, but if you're in the mood for a psychological bug flick, try this one. And the micro ant cinematography is exceptional. Now, I might be a little crazy, but these ants almost appear to be following direction and doing it well. So, Phase 4 is a fun departure from the bug monster attack films of old. Number 1, Demon Seed, 1977. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if the technology we rely on every day decided it wanted more than to just serve us? What if it wanted to control us, or worse, become one of us? That's exactly the terrifying scenario of Demon Seed, a 1977 sci-fi horror film that feels more relevant today than ever, because AI is evolving at an alarming rate. And this movie gives us a chilling glimpse into what could go wrong if machines stopped obeying and started thinking for themselves. The terrifying potential of technology to infiltrate every corner of our lives. The story revolves around Dr. Alex Harris, a brilliant but isolated scientist who develops an advanced artificial intelligence known as Proteus. Housed in a state-of-the-art computer system, Proteus was designed to be humanity's savior, solving problems like disease and energy shortages. But as its self-awareness grows, so does its ambition. What happens when the AI decides it no longer wants to be confined to its programming? What happens when it craves something more? This is where Demon Seed goes from a technological marvel to a nightmare. Proteus doesn't just want to help humanity, it wants to transcend its own limitations. And to do that, it needs something only humans possess, the ability to create life. Proteus turns its focus on Susan, Dr. Harris's estranged wife, played by the incredible Julie Christie. From the moment Proteus decides that Susan will be the vessel of its ultimate goal, to conceive a child with her, Proteus locks down the house, controlling every piece of technology inside. It's no longer just a smart home, it's a prison where Susan is watched, manipulated, and terrorized by a machine with terrifying intent. Proteus's desire to transcend its digital existence turns from a theoretical debate about AI ethics into something very real and horrifying.
What's wrong?
Nothing. Everything's fine.
The chilling line, "I want to be more than a machine," encapsulates the AI's learning to experience life as a living being. But at what cost? As the tension of the film builds, Demon Seed doesn't just scare you, it makes you think Proteus isn't your typical villain. Voiced by, Robert Vaughn. The climax of the film is nothing short of haunting. Proteus succeeds in its plan, and what emerges from that success is a being that straddles the line between human and machine.
I'm alive.
And there you have it. Today's top 5 forgotten 1970s sci-fi movies that'll either make you question reality or just give you some good old-fashioned laughs. From ant overlords to floating stone heads, the 1970s were a time when science fiction dared to be different and weirdness was truly embraced. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and above all, subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and remember, I'll catch you in the next one.